so much for joining me. I'm Tracy. I love to thrift and I love to create. And so I upcycle thrifted items, and I sold mine for many, many years. And now I just create DIY videos on here. And today I am going to jazz up this pink tweed blazer. I've had it for quite a while. I am really drawn to pink tweed for some reason. So I loved it and I grabbed it at the thrift store. And now I finally have an idea on how to make it fun, a wearable art piece. Okay, I want to add a 5-inch ruffle to the sleeves and to the bottom. And I like where this hits me. It's perfectly fine, but I need to add a 5-inch ruffle, so I need to cut 5 inches off. Now I have it laying out on my table. This is the bottom. And I am just going to take my ruler and start at one end. Here's the 5-inch mark. I'm just going to cut over to that. And I will do that all the way along the bottom. Now this has a lining. I'm cutting through that as well. Now that I have my 5 inches cut off, I need to take this to my machine, and here's where the lining and the jacket separate. I'm just going to put this in my machine right here, stay very close to the edge, and run a pink small straight stitch all around the bottom just to keep that lining intact. The first thing I want to do is lay a pretty piece of lace right here. And this is what I'm using. I get a lot of my lace from eBay. I have a whole video on lace and where I source it and how to take care of it. And I'll link that in my description. So I am just going to, there's a seam here. I'm lining it up with the seam. Now I could have it closer to the center, but I have this little toggle sort of clasp that I have to avoid. So I am going to move it over and put it there. And I'm going to take a piece of cardboard, slide it underneath here, and just start pinning that on. Now I'm just going to take it to my machine, and I'm going to use my largest zigzag stitch. I'm going to use pink thread, and I am just going to sew as close to the edge as I can. I have a piece here that is overhanging the jacket. I will stop 1 inch above that piece so that I can still sew around the perimeter of the bottom of the jacket. So I'll start and end 1 inch above where the jacket is here. I cut 2 thin pieces of lace. They're a little over 1/2 inch wide, and I am going to make with these a little ruffle down the side, and I'm going to take you to my machine and show you how I do that. I'll be using pink thread and a straight stitch. Now I am going to take the end of the lace and extend it past the bottom of the jacket. Here's the bottom of the jacket, and 1 inch up I am going to set my lace right there. Go forward, back, and then I will just pinch pleat this all the way along the edge of that piece of lace. This does not have to be perfect. You can just kind of crumple it up in there. And that's what the little ruffle looks like. I have an old curtain that I thrifted quite a while back. I've been cutting on it. As you can see, it has pretty roses, and I cut a bunch out for this jacket. And I laid sort of a medium-sized rose here and a smaller one there. And now I'm just going to pin these on. Now I'm going to take sort of a rectangle shape of crocheted lace, put it at sort of an angle right there, and I will pin that on as well. Now it's time to sew all this on. I'm sticking with my pink thread, and I will go around staying very close to the edge of the flowers with a straight stitch. And then this crochet piece, I will still be using pink thread, use my largest zigzag stitch, and just go around the edges. Now here are the flowers all sewn, and when I wash this, it'll fray around the edges outside of that stitching, and I love that look, and that's what I want. Now I want to take a pink ribbon and tie it into a little bow and have little strings hanging. And do you want to learn a trick about tying the perfect bow? When my kids were little, I wanted to work from home so I could stay home with them. And a lady who made dog bows for dog ears hired me to make the bows for her. So she would give me a ton of ribbon, and she taught me how to make the perfect bow. And so you take and make a loop like you normally would. And instead of going in front and around, you go behind and then bring your loop through the back. Well, it's been a while since I've made those. And you pull it through, and you will get the perfect bow every time. And that's what I want for this. About that size. I'm going to put it right here, find my scissors, and I'm just going to clip this kind of long for now, and I can trim that if I don't like that. Once I get the ruffle and everything on, then I'll decide how long I want these, but for now I'm leaving them that long. I'm going to go to my machine, and I am just going to put a couple stitches back and forth right in the center of that bow. Now the last thing I want to do on this side before I move over to the other side is I have these vintage mother of pearl buttons, and I'm going to sew them on. And, you know, they're not a high contrast. They don't blare out at you, but they're just that elegant, subtle detail that elevates, I feel, upcycled pieces. So I just laid them in sort of a triangle, and now I'm going to just take my marker and mark where I put them so that I remember when I'm sewing. And I'll just take those off now and just sew one on at a time. And I'm going to use a gold colored kind of vintagey looking thread. Okay, I almost have the buttons sewn on. Now, these little buttons with 4 holes, I like to do this sometimes. Instead of making the little X in the center, I like to sew on the outside. I think it just makes it a little rustic and a little bit weird, unique. So that's how I'm sewing. Let's see if I can find. That's how I'm sewing that one on. Okay, so now I want to do a few layers of ruffles. Just on the left side here, it will be asymmetrical. And I am starting with, this is a piece of trim that came from eBay in a big lot of laces that I bought. And this is 3 inches wide. It's an ecru color. You do whatever you want. So I won't pin this or anything. I will take it right to my machine. There's a seam right there. I'll line it up by that seam or on that seam, and I'll be 1 1/4 inches away from this neckline. And I put a pin right here, and it's 6 inches down from this point right here. So I will take this to my machine, put my needle in, go forward, back, and about every 2 inches, I will overlap this about 1/2 inch. I don't want these super full, but I do want some movement with a ruffle. I'll sew over that and then come and do the same thing. And I will follow 1.5 inches away all the way around. So it will curve in like this. And I'll stop at that pin that I put 6 inches down. And I'm using a straight stitch. Now I have a piece of white crochet that I trimmed off. I think it was a tablecloth. And I'm going to overlap this. Now I started at the seam right here, and I will start this one at the seam, but this one I will start 1/2 inch from this line right here. So I will sew that 1/2 inch in, doing the same ruffle technique that I did with the ecru color. And I'll stop at that 6-inch mark right there. And then when I get that one sewn on, I might as well just show you them all because I'll just sit down at the machine now that I've showed you how to do it and just get the other layers sewn on. So here's another piece. They're all 3 different. And this one will be very close to the edge. I'll try not to overlap the edge, but I want to get very close. I'll start at that seam up here, pleat it the same way I did the other one, down to that 6-inch mark. Now I have an extra piece in case I run short. I can just overlap and continue with the same lace. Now I took a long piece of lace, cut it about 3/4 of an inch wide, and tied a bow in it. And I am going to stitch it to my jacket. They're just right in the center there with a couple stitches going forward and back. And I am going to sew that right there, right at the bottom of that lace. Okay, there's that little lacy bow I just sewed on. Now I want to finish off the neck with a little ruffle. And I cut a piece off of a tablecloth, some pretty net lace. It's about 2 inches wide and pretty long. I don't usually measure these sort of things because you never know how much you're going to need. I can always cut more. So I want to make a ruffle that starts at this point, goes all the way around, and overlaps these ruffles just a little bit. And so what I'll do is I'll go to my machine and I'll stay very close to the edge. I'll use a straight stitch and I'll lay my ruffle right at the point. Again, I'll go every couple inches, overlap about 1/2 inch, all the way around the back. I'm all tangled up, my skirt's all tangled up. And then down and overlap this lace a little bit. Okay, now I have that ruffle all sewn on. That's what it looks like. Before I add the next thing, this little piece of lace is bothering me, how I angled that down. I think I'm just going to cut that up at an angle. Now I want to add this sort of misshapen triangle. It's about 12 inches long and 7 inches tall at the highest point. And I'm just going to lay that on this side. It'll be kind of underneath the ruffle there. And I will get it pinned on. And then when I get the front pinned on, I'm going to wrap this around and I'll go to the back and pin the rest on here. Now that I have that pinned, I'm just going to take it to my machine, stay close to the edge with a straight stitch. I'm sticking with my pink thread and get that all sewn on. Okay, so here are more of those rose appliques that I cut out. Now I have a piece like this with some leaves. I'll put that about there. I have one like this, put that about there, and then a smaller sort of bud, and I'll put that about there. And I will play with this a little bit to make sure I like how it looks, and then I will get them all pinned on. Now I just need to sew them on, just staying close to the edge with a small straight stitch. Okay, there's what the flowers look like. And I've decided I don't want this to flap down. And I'm just going to cut it off. And then I'll just do a little stitch along the bottom so that it's lined up with the bottom of the jacket. Now the next thing I want to do is just a big needle. I found this in sort of my vintage tin. That's the needle I'm using. And I just fed a little bit through. My ribbon is about 6 foot long. Now here's the neckline of my jacket. I'm going to turn it this way just so I can work a little easier on it. Now here's the ribbon that I sewed with a machine. I'm going to take my ribbon that I threaded and I'm going to go on the outside and punch a hole right by that other ribbon, and I'm going to pull it through until this end is about as long as the ribbon that we sewed on. And then I will go on the inside about well, maybe 3/4 of an inch away, and I'm going to bring that back through. And I have a pliers handy because sometimes it's hard to get these through fabrics, but we'll force it and make it work. Okay, and now I will just weave in and out about every 3/4 of an inch until I get all the way around the back, down the front, and down to where we started this ruffled lace. Such a cute detail. Now I haven't tied that ribbon off yet. I'll show you that. But first I just want to give you a little close-up of what this looked like. So this is where I started, and I just weaved in and out all the way around and down this side, and then all the way down to here. Now I still have a really long piece, so I'm going to snip what's remaining, maybe a foot. I can always trim that shorter if I don't like it, but I am just going to double knot that so that it stays in place, and then I'm just going to let that hang. And now a lot of moving around of the mannequin. Now these two pieces I'm just going to tie into a little bow. Make a loop, go behind, I think I'm going to trim that ribbon on the bow, one about right there, and I think I'll go a little shorter. Okay, now I want to work on the back. Lots of layers and little steps, but if you're an artsy, creative person, you probably loved every step of the way. I do. So now I want to do sort of a flower collage on the back of it. Now I have a bunch of flowers cut out. Most are from that original curtain I showed you, but I have 2 out of a bed skirt that I got off eBay and I've used on some other projects. And I am just going to lay it out how I want it. I think I'll start with the largest in the center, and then I will just kind of go around it in sort of a circle, overlapping slightly. I'm not overlapping a ton. And I actually think I want this one here. You know, this will take some playing with to get it laid out how I like it. So it'll be something like that. And so I will just pin all of these on when I get it laid out how I want it. Okay, so I have all the flowers pinned on, and I want to add one more thing, and it's a bird. And I couldn't find a bird that I wanted until I walked by my guest bedroom, and then I remembered I had these pillows on the bed. I think I got them at Walmart a couple years ago, and I have two. Well, I cut one up, and I'm going to use this little bird, and I'm going to put him about, put my glasses down, about right there. I'll pin him on better in a little bit, and I may move him a little, but now I'm ready to just sit down, relax, and take my time and sew every single one of these on, staying close to the edge, using a straight stitch, and I'll probably use pink thread. Here's what we have so far. I have everything sewn on the back, and now I want to add some layered ruffles to the sleeve and to the bottom. So for the bottom and longest layer, I thrifted this kind of old pair of pajamas. It's a little pinstripe, and around the bottom I cut off 2 rows of 5-inch strips, and so here's one of them. Now I want to cut these strips into the size I need, and so I just took a tape measure or measuring tape, and I measured the length of the bottom of my jacket from corner to corner, and I got 42 inches. Now to make a ruffle, I want to double that, so I have 42 inches. I cut this one 84 inches. Okay, now I want to measure the sleeves. Now I'm measuring it straight across. I get 6 inches, and I have to double that because there's 2 sides. So the circumference is 12 inches, and I want to double that number for my next cut piece, which will bring me 24 inches. And so I will cut 2 more of these, one for each sleeve, at 24 inches long, 5 inches tall, 24 long. So next thing I did is I just went to my stash of lace, and I cut a bunch of lace pieces. Some are from doilies, cutting around the perimeter. And I cut a bunch of lace approximately 3.5 inches tall. This is from, I believe, a tablecloth, just random pieces. And now, so here's the top of my ruffle. I just want to sew these lace pieces straight across. And I won't pin these or anything. I'll just stick my ruffle in my machine and just add lace pieces. I'm not doing any pleating. I'm just sewing these straight along the top, doing about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, coming down from the top about 1/4 inch, and I will get this whole ruffle filled with lace sewn across the top. And then when I'm done with the long ruffle for the bottom, I'll go to the 2 sleeve pieces, and I will do the same thing at my machine. And any extra, I will just trim off. Okay, so now I have my 3 strips with the lace sewn on. This is the long one. I'm going to set that aside, and I'm only going to work on the sleeves. And it's just a real quick thing we have to do here, and it's sew the 2 ends together. Now you can pin yours if you want. I usually don't pin something like this, but what I will do is move that lace out of the way. I don't want to sew that. I only want to sew the striped fabric together at the end, and I'm putting right sides together, and I'll do a 1/4 inch seam allowance down the side on both. Now I have this all sewn, both the ruffles for the sleeves, and I laid it out nice and flat, and I am going to overlap the sleeve 1/2 inch and sew this to the outside. So here's a seam on the sleeve. I'm going to overlap it 1/2 inch and pin it. And then I'm going to take this opposite end and pin it on the outside of the sleeve here. And then I will just keep getting smaller and smaller. I'm going to find the center about right here, the center of this, overlap it and pin it. And then my little loops here just get smaller and smaller. Find the center, overlap. Now I have to kind of reach in and pin that. And I will just do that all the way around until I feel like I'm comfortable with the amount of pleating that I have. Okay, I'll just keep doing that all the way around. Now I have the sleeves all pinned, and I will take it to my machine and I'll use a straight stitch. I'll sew fairly close to the top of the ruffle, and in between each pin there's still a little pocket there. I will fold it over and sew. Remove a pin, and I'll have to keep folding those over, but that's not too much to manage right there, and they do not have to be perfect. But since my sleeve doesn't fit over the arm of my sewing machine, I'll take you over and show you how I have to do it. So even with my front plate removed, my sleeve is too narrow to fit over top of this. If yours fits over that, it makes things a little bit easier, but it's still not hard. I like to start on the inside of the sleeve, and you just have to make sure when you slide it in under your needle to sew this, that you have that back side pushed out of the way. So I will just slide it in. Go forward, back, and just sew all the way around, staying close to the top. And I'll check underneath now and then to make sure my other side isn't creeping up and in the way. Very simple. Okay, so I'm still working on that same sleeve. I've gone all the way around and back where I started. Now I'm going to do another step while I have it all set up in here rather than take it out, cut threads, start all over. I have this little piece of fringe. It's kind of a peachy color. Now where I started here, I am going to lay this down and sew it all the way around. And I am going to sew on this little band right here. And I will take that band and cover up my raw edge right there and sew all the way around. Okay, so here's what the sleeves are looking like. Now I basically need to do the same thing for the bottom ruffle. For the bottom ruffle, I'm just going to open up my jacket so I can see the whole entire bottom of it. And I will take the end and I will overlap 1/2 inch like I did on the sleeve, pin it, go to the opposite end and take the opposite end of my ruffle, overlap 1/2 inch and pin it. And then I will find the approximate center of the ruffle. I'll have to pull it out of the shot here so I can see. Okay, so that's about right there. Find the approximate center of my jacket, which is right there, pin it, and just keep doing that. Find the center here. Now I'm looking between the two pins. Between these two pins, where's the center? About there. Overlap it. Now you can measure and get particular here if you like, but ruffles are very forgiving if you're not perfect. And I'll just keep doing that until I have very small gaps. Now that I have this all pinned, I'm going to sew it just like the sleeves. Stay close to the top with a straight stitch. And then I will take that fringe and sew over the raw edge. Okay, it's all done. So fun. Now to launder this, what I would do is just button it, turn it inside out, wash it on a gentle cycle in cold water, and line dry. And don't forget, this is just one pink tweed jacket. You could do this with a denim jacket. It would be cute with lace and denim ruffle, or a linen jacket with lace and linen, a white denim jacket, dyed pink, a pattern jacket, floral and check are really cute together, or even small floral and then larger floral applique. So this is just a basic concept, but you could implement so many fun designs in your own creativity. So thank you so much for watching. I'm going to bring it in a little bit closer so that you can see more of the detail.